Welcome back to another edition of Practice by Numbers and Front Office Rocks collaboration. And in this video, we're going to talk about recall, the importance of getting patients to a point there for their recall appointments. Now, every practice should know that you should be appointing your patients before they leave at the end of their appointment, whether you do it in the hygiene chair, or you do it at the front desk, however you do it, whatever works for you. But every patient should leave with their next appointment for their cleaning. However, that doesn't happen. Now, the better you are with the verbal skills, the higher the percentage you will get the patients to appoint, but there's going to be just some that don't appoint for whatever reason. And up until I found Practice by Numbers, I didn't really have a good way to proactively be getting on the phones and getting those patients to appoint until they became overdue and they showed up on a list that I printed out of my practice management software. But now with Practice by Numbers, my team can be more proactive to get those patients to appoint as soon as possible for their cleaning appointment and not wait 6 months. So Rohit was going to show us now in Practice by Numbers Revenue IQ, which is an actual way to help your team be proactive about getting your patients to schedule their cleaning appointments. So Rohit, can you show us a little bit about this part of the software?
Yes, absolutely. And as Laura mentioned, there's multiple ways of doing things, and the more proactive you are, the better you will be, and the less follow-up you have to do. But no matter what, no matter how proactive you are, there will be patients who you will miss in getting that appointment scheduled, and that's where we come in. And there's two different aspects of our system that will help you with that. One is now and today, which patients you skipped, and the patients that just didn't schedule for their next 6-month appointment and you just forgot to get them on the books. And that's something that you go here into pre-appointment. And this is where it helps you figure out the patients that should have been scheduled for their 6-month appointment, but they were not. Okay? And the way you do that is you come down in pre-appointments and click on any of these pre-appointments. And how do you find this? So let's say they completed a prophy today and they do not have any future appointments scheduled. So pick that macro and pick the date that you're looking for. Let's say we were just looking for in the past 1 week. So I'm going to go back into last 1 week. Let's say, actually, this is not the last 1 week. This would be the last 1 week. So these are the patients. I'm trying to find anybody who completed any of these services, which was prophy or a child prophy or an adult prophy or their periodontal scaling and replaning or maintenance. All these patients should have been appointed for the next appointment. So if I hit search, there are 6 patients that don't have their future appointment. I'm going to take this out as well, the last contacted. There are 6 patients still. These patients don't have their next appointment. So either this was for a good reason that they didn't have the next appointment, or your front office should be giving these patients a call to say, well, I forgot. We forgot to schedule you for your next appointment. You need to do it. And if you keep up with this on a regular basis and keep your pre-appointment numbers pretty high, then your recall program kind of works itself on a regular basis. So you don't have to be making a whole lot of recall calls. But in most offices, there's a backlog of recall patients that have not been scheduled. Or even if they were scheduled, they canceled or failed their appointment. So let's go into the recall. Unless, Laura, you have any question in the pre-appointment area.
I was just going to say that I really love this because what I teach with Front Office Rocks is the verbal skills that we need to try to get our patients to appoint. And of course, we want 100% to appoint before they leave. But there are the ones that say they need to go home and check their calendar, or they're in a hurry and they're running out. So like I said, instead of waiting, like you were mentioning, until a certain point, let's call them and say, okay, great, I'll call you tomorrow, as they're running out the front door. Or what's a good time tomorrow? Because I'll call you and we'll get something in your calendar. But it shows that sense of urgency, because a lot of offices are trying to build up a really strong hygiene department. But if we're not showing that sense of urgency, if we're not making it a priority to the patients to schedule, they're not going to want to schedule it. So I really like this because it's within days you can do this of the patient being in there, not months and weeks and months later.
Right. And another thing to remember is that those pre-appointment percentages that you see in the Practice IQ, when you call this patient and call them back and schedule them, that pre-appointment percentage will go up. So it gives your staff the opportunity to work on their pre-appointment percentages after the fact as well. Okay. So let's quickly jump into then recall. And recall is very important as well, because now this not just looks at your prophies and your SRPs and all, this looks at all different kinds of recalls that you have set up in your office. And I recommend at maximum setting 2 to 3 recalls. One should be for your regular prophy 6-month appointment. One should be for your perio maintenance 4-month appointment. And maybe a third one is something in between that you have a special kind of a program. But I've seen in many offices, there are like 10 different recalls. And the more recalls you have, the difficult you will find to implement those. So try to limit the number of recalls you have in the program. Now, even if you do have 10 in your Dentrix or your EagleSoft system, within practice by numbers, you can limit it. Okay? And that's a topic in itself. And I'll post something else online to show how you can limit the number of recalls in the system. But let's say now you have done that, you know the recalls that you're going to use. What this will do is it'll help you find that list of patients who are either coming up for their recall and they don't have an appointment, or they're already past you, right? Those are the two kinds of patients that you're trying to find. So first look at patients who are due for recall in up to a month. What this is saying is, let's find all the patients who are due for their recall, but they don't have the appointment scheduled. And I'm gonna hit search. Right here, this will give me a list of every single patient that is due for recall by April 6th, but they don't have it scheduled. Okay? And this works only if their recall appointments have the recall codes in them. So if you don't enter those recall codes and those recall appointments, we don't know what they're coming in for. They could be coming in for to see your happy face and might just have a chat and leave, right?
And actually, this is good from an office manager perspective, just to show that, let's say this was my office, and I know that there's 45 people due, but my hygiene coordinator's only called 2 people thus far. So this is a list now I can manage as an office manager. When I ask my staff, are you making calls? They can actually show me, right? Or let's say the appointment's in there without the recall code, like Rohit's saying, they can fix the appointment, get the codes in there so that we can manage these numbers together as an office manager or a doctor and my hygiene coordinator.
Right, and keeping this number as low as possible would help.
Yeah.
So this is looking in the future. This is looking current and in the future. But you also want to always look at in the past, and there'll be another topic of patient reactivation, but a failed recall will eventually turn into an inactive patient and fall into the reactivation column, and you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure they don't fail their recalls and stop coming to you. So as easy as it was to look at future appointments, you can look at overdue appointments. So you can look at overdue by 1, 3, 6. Let's just go open it up a little bit and say 0 to 6 months. And this will give me a list of all the patients that are overdue for their recall by up to 6 months, and they don't have their appointment scheduled. Of course, it works only if you have the recall codes entered into your appointments. And your office should be calling every one of these patients, especially those 0 to 6 months, because remember, somebody who's overdue by their recall by 6 months, how long have they not been in your office? Up to a year, right?
Right.
So they run the risk
of going inactive. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. So can you show then what we do if you click on to somebody that doesn't have a message yet, and I'm an employee? So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to call number 2 on the list. This is where we can go in and we can now see, when they've had appointments in the past, we can see their account, we can put in a note, we can see what they've been in for, their history. It's all right here without having to click into multiple screens in their practice management software. We can put down here whether they scheduled or not. And then what I do in my office is we put the note that we would normally put in EagleSoft. We start it with our initials and the date, or the date's there, but the initials, and then what happened during that phone call. We then copy and paste it, put that into EagleSoft, and then hit this as saved. And what this does is it gives us an active list. Now, I don't have to call that patient again because I left the message or I scheduled the patient. I can move on to the next patient. And as a hygiene coordinator, I can now show my office manager, my doctor, look at how great I am at getting patients to a point for their cleaning appointments. So this is a really good statistical way, real numbers way to be able to actively reach out to patients, show the importance of getting them scheduled, and then get them into the schedule. And as a hygiene coordinator or a scheduler, you can pat yourself on the back and tell your doctor how amazing you are, because this software is going to help you do it.
Right, and when you create accountability for each let's say you have 3 hygienists and you create accountability for 3 hygienists to say your reappointment percentage needs to be at 95% or higher. The more tools you give them to get there, the better it would be. If the only tool that they have available is they had to schedule that appointment before the patient left for the door, and if the patient left, oh, well, they're done.
Right.
That will only get you compliance up to a certain point. But now this gives you a tool that goes above and beyond. They can catch up to say, here, my month is ending, and I want to get my reappointment percentage up to 95%. Let me find those patients who I missed. And you can do that right now.
Yep. Which is why Front Office rocks. And as an office manager myself, I love practice by numbers, because it's one thing to know what your statistics are, but to not have an ability to do much about it, or something that's as dynamic as this. So as I've said in other videos, the day we started working with practice by numbers, my team logged in and started making calls off this list, because it's that easy. So if you need implementation help, if you need suggestions of what I would suggest by Front Office rocks, or what Rohit would suggest, please reach out to us, because this is so simple to just get your team on the phone and get those patients to know it's important that they schedule and get them to schedule. And that's really what we're here to do, is to help you in your office, improve this area of your practice.
Right.
Well, log in for another video. We're going to keep digging on each one of these. So hopefully this is helping everybody learn more about how great this is and how you can implement it in your office.
Yep. All right. Thanks a lot, Laura.
Thank you.